Hello there, Challenger Coach in here. So I want to talk about the new patch that recently has been released. Apex MMR Duo restrictions. The MMR Duo restrictions for Apex ranks has been re-enabled as of patch 13.15. This means you can do above master, any rank actually, right? Now why did Riot Games add this? Just for like high elo content creators such as Retire. He said it himself. If this option will be added back, he will actually play ranked more actively. This is more so for Twitch and YouTube content creation, right? It's not because like Riot Games really like cares about you doing or not. It's just really all about content creators making more content about the game to keep it more relevant. Um, Ethos gets a nerf, so it seems to be it's a 10% nerf later on in the game. His scaling will be slightly worse. It's not the end of the world. The champion is probably still playable. One patch they buff it, one patch they nerf it. um, okay, so let's look at Caitlyn. Critical strike coefficiency. So from 1.2 to 1.3, this will grant 27 base damage at 100% critical chance. I guess it will slightly work better with crit, right? Okay, ace in the hole. Critical strike chance to damage ratio 2.5 percentage additional damage per 10 percentage critical chance. 3.5 percentage additional damage per 10 percentage of critical chance. Um, so that means it's better by 1%, right? It scales by 1% per 10 critical strike better, which will definitely allow her to get smoother kills with her ultimate, which generally means that you will deal a little bit more damage than before with your passive and with your ult, which means it's easier to find lethal damage. So it means that Caitlyn will be a bit more aggressive in lane, and AD carry should be a little more careful because she has more damage in her kit. Which means if you don't have a way to dodge her ultimate, then you might just be dead. So Camille, reasonable buff. Let's see what did they buff in her. So her base damage is slightly higher. The attack damage growth, my bad, by 0.3, which means that certainly she's gonna have more and more AD the more she scales, because this champion mostly scales in lane. Um, the Hextech Ultimatum, right? Base bonus magic damage is finally higher than it was before, because in the past, like, it did not do much damage. It has some base damage, it deals some HP base damage, but in reality it does not do much except it locks down people. But the damage wise, it just does not do much. So they added like 15 damage early on, and later on they added 25, which is quite a lot. So it means that generally Camille will be a little bit more scary right now. It will be more advised to use your ult, right, with your E and Q together, so you can get as much swings off as possible. So ideally you need to avoid your E attacks with your Qs to get as many ult procs as possible. Because right now we deal 15 more damage, which is on hit, right, which is equals to a recurve bow type of bonus like damage, right? Recurve bow does like 15 bonus damage on magic damage on hit, right? The passive itself. So, health regeneration. Gwen gets a buff apparently, if I see it correctly, so she will be a bit less vulnerable in lane. It's a bit easier to survive through poking matchups and in the jungle, of course. While they also hard buffed her passive by 5 armor and magic resist early on, that's kind of a lot, and later on by 5. The scaling is the same, so she will be slightly more tank, less vulnerable to burst, I assume. These are decent changes both in the jungle, of course, and in top lane. This will just make her generally more resilient. Ivern, okay. Base stats, magic resistances. So they lowered his magic resist, right? And also the ones that he gets actually per level. Ally on hit damage, so it got a little bit higher than before, right? So it's a bit higher, right? Later on it's 30, early on it's 10, so they're gonna have more on hit damage. That's definitely great. Shield strength is again a little bit higher by 25 later on. As we can see, the AP ratio is pretty much the same. Oh no, actually the AP ratio is lower than before, huh? So supportive build is a little better now, huh? Okay. Duration is less by 15 seconds. Armor and magic resistance is 25, 50, 100. Down to 30, 90, which means he's gonna be a little bit more tank early on, but later on he's gonna be less tank, which is okay. Now his HP gonna be less, it's gonna be only 1k for 1k 300, but it will scale linearly right now. AP scaling is same as before. This will approximately a 5% durability decrease. Okay. Daisy attack damage. So its attack damage gonna scale less with AP right now. It so the reason why they are nerfing its HP because they are nerfing Smite. So basically Smite does almost no damage to Daisy, to this type of T-burst type of companions, right? Which means that summons, right? Which means that he will be definitely more of a threat right now with his Daisy, because it will feel like there is like an extra body in Summoner's Rift and not just something you can smite off and just like destroy it in no time. So apparently they're nerfing Kaisa, I assume both because she's strong in the arena and in Summoner's Rift. So it is gonna affect her actually both ways. They already nerfed her in arena before. So she's gonna have 30 less HP. Damage per missiles, let's see. So the AP ratio gonna be slightly less with 10 percentage, but the flat damage is the same as before. Maximum single target damage would evolved. So it's gonna go up to 225, same as before, but they did nerf the AD scaling, they did not nerf it. The AP scaling, they did nerf it. A maximum single target damage, let's see, it's the same as before, except the AP ratio is nerfed more so significantly actually. Then Void Seeker will have 2 less percentage usability, right? Which means that this is functionally on a 8.7 percentage cooldown increase on hit. So some people would say this is borderline nothing, but this really tones her down, especially early on. What does this even mean? Her AP build will be significantly weaker, and I know that it's a very like small like W spam difference, right? But it does matter because it's a little bit harder to proc her passive than it's a little bit harder to constantly like spam this W non-stop, right? So it does matter. It looks like it's not much, but it does matter. So Maokai gets a nerf, okay, that it's buff for some reason, so he's gonna deal 20 less damage, which means his early clear is weaker and his jungle is maybe it's a bit weaker to take down a Drake and a Herald. Maybe it will take an extra Q right now. Because in general, he is a type of champion that has a lot of control in team fights, control over vision, so you have to nerf him at least one way, you know, to kind of like mess with his jungle clear at least. So Nami, is this a buff? It is a buff, so she provides more movement speed with her passive by 10 flat and 5% more AP, which will feel like AD carries will be able to probably swing in maybe an extra hit if Nami speeds them up or they can space a little better to escape. Aqua Prison will deal 15 more damage because it's an ability, I suppose that's hard to hit, so that's why they want to compensate, I assume. Multiple Q adjustments made to Raz, so holy. Consistency is key. All spells and auto attacks now apply damage first, then apply the passive. I mean, on a tank, it's not a big deal. I guess if you would go AP rel, then it would matter more. Uh, this is a little bit of a nerf. Shouldn't be that big of a deal if you go tank rel. Q flash interaction. Q maintains the original target location after flashing. Q maintains the absolute direction after flashes. This should feel more intuitive and in line with expected outcomes. Well, way Romancy mount up. Okay, Q all changes increase dash speed before the flip. Okay. Once she locked onto a target, this should both solve some bugs and make the ability feel quicker and more responsive. Alright. Monster mounting maneuver. Fix the bug that was causing Res W. Mount up not to apply bonus damage to epic monsters is definitely good to know. Sejani, is this a buff or nerf? So apparently they are nerfing the initial cast of her W. Just the flat damage itself, as I see. Second cast is also getting a 10 less damage. Because Sejani always felt like it's just the type of champion that does quite a lot of damage for a tank, right? So now she does like 10 less on both sides. So I assume it's a little easier right now to escape from her. But I don't know how much will the 10 less damage do. Maybe it will mess a little bit with her clear, especially around raptors. Attack damage growth. Maybe around wolves, right? So they're nerfing her attack damage growth by 0.4, health growth also by 5. Was Shyvana even that strong or what? Shyvana last round of changes were a bit too fire, so we dampened her flames down slightly. I didn't see many Shyvanas around, but I don't know. She might ban. Actually, I don't know. So 5 more damage. Her, I assume her jungle clear is a little better, and clearing those minions is also a bit faster, I assume. Because note that it's 5 damage, right? But she throws multiple rocks, right? She doesn't only throws one. Uh, Unraveled Earth. So it's gonna have 2 less cooldown, which gonna allow her to full clear a little faster, especially because also her damage banner by 25 percentage wise, so her full clear gonna be better. She also in team fights, she's gonna have a little more control around Drake's skirmishes, right? Not full team fights, so she's gonna have a little more control in these early mid fights. Definitely helps. So, passive Way of the Wanderer. Shield strength 125 to 600, based on level. 125 to 600 now. Now mirrors base stat scaling. I actually don't know what does that mean. So the change in this patch ends up being a 30-50 percentage larger shield in mid game. That helps Yasuo because he's kind of squishy, especially in arena. So I do assume this will help him to some extent, because right now he feels to be squishier, so I assume that's what I was thinking of, like does he like get now like a faster, bigger shield, but overall it should be the same, and it is. Yon is currently not performing well. Okay, so he gets 15 more shield early on and later on 15, which will help him into poking matchups on top lane. His short range is gonna be a bit more potent than against mages, right? In mid lane, they already buffed the frequency of his W, but now they also buff the shield itself, which will allow him to go for easier 1v2s, I assume, and more so for trades, right? So I think you press W on Yon, if you hit it, then you outtrade pretty much everyone right now. It could be a negative as well, because if you have the shield and second wind on your own and the shield does not get to be broken, then your HP is not damaged, which means that you don't heal. So sometimes it could be possibly a negative as well, but shouldn't be a big deal. Damage to non-lane minions. Okay, so as I said, Smite is nerfed and 20% is slow for 2 seconds. Unlocked on first upgrade to Unleash Smite, unlocked on second upgrade to Primal Smite. Okay. Alright, so Annie is getting also a nerf on her Tibbers. It does not scale anymore with AP, the armor, and magic resistances, which shouldn't be too big of a deal. And as Riot Games said, it's a 5 to 10% durability decrease, and also they nerf the HP of the bear a little bit. The reasoning behind that is simple. Smite is getting nerfed, so her ult is getting nerfed. Our Apex turret durability again got decreased. It's just balanced around Smite, of course. Magic turret magic resistance, magic fuck, magic resistance is a bit higher early on. Later on, it's still higher. Same thing with Yorick. Now he's Maiden heals, which is nice to have, of course. Maiden's armor and magic resist gonna be 10 to 50, which definitely helps into champions that do a lots of HP based magic damage. It does not get it's like the maiden usually has a lot of HP but no armor and magic resist. So champions that do deal like HP based damage, they will do less, right? So, oh wow, now it scales with less of Yorick's HP, and it does not have an insane amount of HP in the late game. This is a bit weird. What? So, the health of the maiden is 400 right now, but its scaling is a bit weird. Like in the late game, it won't have a massive HP, but in the mid game, I assume it will have more. Although the HP ratio got nerfed, but I assume everybody just goes anyways, just Hullbreaker at max on Yorick and in less lethality, right? Um, so I think in mid game he gonna have a little bit more value, right? Mid early, I assume his maiden cannot be smited, which is good. Gonna get a little bit more value out of it. Um, yeah, so it's like a mid game buff, I assume. It's a bit weird. Solar and activation conditions. Damaging an enemy champion with an attack ability or pet damage. will no longer proc Night Harvester. So this is a nerf to our static shield abusers like LeBlanc. So I assume nobody will go for that build anymore, at least if they read the patch notes, of course. Um, Night Harvester generally was kinda useless, and the only time it was picked is when people combine it with Static Sheath, but generally the Proto Belt is better on most of the things, which just ends up being a bit awkward right now because, I mean, now the only use was Static and Night Harvester, and now that combo doesn't really exist, and now the item is just kinda meh. The only reason it was built because of static, right? So it's a bit of a nerf to the item that's already not great. Glacial Augment is pretty overpowered right now and can end up feeling bad when dominant on tanks and support. I guess Riot players lol. So they nerfed the slow by 10 percentage and apparently the scaling is buffed on bonus 80. I mean 80 champs don't generally build it, right? Okay. And the healing and shielding power scales the same way. The AP wise also scales the same way, so it's a nerf for tanks specifically, right? Arena balance adjustments. Okay, Evelyn grants all players camouflage. What? Okay, what? Welcome to arena balance changes. Wait, do I read it correctly? I'm not delusional. Evelyn grants all players camouflage. Does it mean the enemy players as well? Like, how does this work? The all allied players or all enemy? Like, how does this work? I felt like she needs a little buff, but I just, what is this? Gwen occasionally protects the lowest health player with her W, Hallowed Mist. So are these like the type of enemies that you have to fight or what? Oh, these are the type of enemies you have to fight or okay, I get it. My bad. So Evelyn will give invisibility for everyone. Gwen occasionally protects the lowest health player with her W. Hollow Jin casts his ultimate curtain call, which will alternate shots between each player. Shaco continuously places boxes around the arena, so that will be fun and annoying. The first player to die will instead become Viego for a period of time. Okay, but how strong is that Viego? Sakshal finally gets a buff because he's not too great in arena. Uh, his W, I think it's not too useful. Action Q damage. So his Q damage is significantly higher, and they apparently even buffed the AD ratio by quite a lot, because this champion is not too great overall. W revive health percentage is not 33 percentage but 16, so it does actually revive. Okay. E attack damage scaling 0.3 per 100 bonus attack speed, 0.45 per 100 percentage bonus attack speed, which means his E will deal significantly more damage, same as his Q. His R has 10 percentage more AD ratio, which just allows him to deal more damage overall, cause that's what it feels like. If you don't deal enough damage, you might just be useless as action. Passive chimes needed per upgrade tier, so you only need 2, which means that you're generally gonna have more damage, because as a utility champion in arena, you're not too useful. That's what I said about Bard. Apparently they nerf his AD, AP ratio, my bad, on his passive, so he's not so useless. W charge time is also 10 from 8 because it just takes too much, so it sucks a bit. Hey, they gave a W ability haste buff 70, so his W is more usable. Baymax specs is 33 and not 3. So, and the W healing is also double E ability haste is 70. So you can sort of play for overtime, I assume, with Bard, which it's like you can like disengage your ally champions a little more often and you have a little more damage because like this champion before used to be kinda meh. Passive mana shield ratio is a little bit higher. Passive cooldown is lower because you're not gonna get two rotations of it, so now that they lowered it to 30 you may be gonna get them. Ooh, interesting changes. So AP ratio is 150. Now that's interesting. And Q ability haste also is 40 more, which means you're gonna use it more frequently. Or passive base damage. So people don't only meta abuse, but they will pick champions that will be more so off meta. That's what Riot Games is trying to do. So the AP scaling gonna be higher by 10 percentage and also the flat damage by 10 of the passive itself, I assume, yeah. And the activatable will deal 30 percentage more damage. I think these are very good Blitzcrank changes. I think we'll see way more often Blitzcranks. As I said, Kassadin is not too useful in this game mode, so they added way more damage actually on his Q by 35. Base damage is again higher by 25, up to 70. Okay, that's nice. So our base damage is higher by 30 and 30 in the late game. Our bonus damage per stack is also higher by 10, so this will probably make Kassadin viable. Katarina passive damage AD scaling is higher by 20%. Passive cooldown reduction on kills is 20, not 15. Because usually you don't get two rotations of ults like that, right? Except if you get plants, of course. Q damage. So the Q damage is higher by 15% AP. E damage, again, it's a little higher by 10% AD, which is definitely good. These are good changes, 30 more damage. So it feels like that you can pick champions that are not supposed to be picked in these 2v2s, in this type of like arena matches, because they're similar to ARAMs. Like some champions don't have those stat check type of kits, and they rely on outplays, but some champs you just can't outplay, right? So it's like you won't face Serat mages usually in the arena, which Katarina generally likes to face, right? Because people don't pick those champs, that Katarina would be good into. R damage per dagger, wow. So they are really trying to make Katarina useful, right? So they both nerf the flat and the percentage. So these are insane changes. Q base cooldown is lower, which allows him to fight a little more often, and his abilities on his E feels to be nice to spam the T a little bit often to have more target access. Q bonus movement speed is wow, way higher later on, early on as well. Q AP ratio is higher, so AP Ramus is a thing right now, I assume. The armor scaling is way higher. W bonus MR is again higher by how much? 10 percentage later on. Eton duration is way more than before because it wasn't really too useful. Bonus attack speed duration is more than before. Our AP ratio is 100 percentage. Serat passive damage to plants does actually 2 damage, so that's actually a good change. W slow 15 percentage more, that's great. Disengage from people more easily. Our bonus damage is more because usually it's hard to like R in the arena, so it should be a bit more rewarding. Q damage 6 case. Oh wow, I played 6 before, it didn't feel to be bad, but these are very good changes. So 30 more damage, that's insane. 30 more ability haste, which is also insane on his E. AP ratio 10 percentage more. E slow goes up to 70, so it will slow very badly. Echoes of Hylia will heal more later on and early on as well, which is insane. Damage per shard, that's a lot of damage later on. So I assume it will be more useful. Guardian's Dark getting a lethality buff is great because it's Guardian Hammer meta, truth to be told. Hextech Gunblade gets a 10 AP ratio buff and of course a 5% Omnivamp, which means that people will generally build it more often, I assume, on champs like Katarina, right? Brawler's Claw. AD ratio changed. So 20 to 50 for melee champs, to 45 to range champs, and 30 for melee champs, which will promote, I assume, Prowler's Claw on Draven or on champs that do want to go for that, I assume. Like, maybe it will be more picked in on range champs right now, and also like on melee ones, because the ratio is way higher than before. Staff of Flowing Water, more speed by 5%, AP is again more, and apparently we'll see some type of Staff of Flowing Water type of Oriana's maybe or something. Uh, Earthquake base explosion time is low. Oh my god. Why? Why? Tenacity was a way to play around this if people have CC form of dashes. It's good though. Because if people don't have CC, then it's not that great, right? Perseverance heals more and amp regeneration is more. Nice to have. Alistar finally to nerf to Rollistar because he spams that ult, he spams that W. Like, it's a perma pick. Like, when I start perma picking it, everybody did it. Not to say I invented Alistar in Arena, but kinda feels like it. Tibor's base health reduced by 50%. They nerfed so much Annie that she's not too great right now. Finally, they nerfed Corki as well. Package duration from 60 to 15. Man, all the time been saying, like, it lasts too long. Like, the packages are this strong, you get it for too much. But at least make it in a way that you can run away from Corki, and he's forced to use it, and he can't hold so much into it, because he can blast you with thousands of rockets before he just ults in, and it's not like so fair, right? So they nerfed it, and they also nerfed his early by 30% ability haste. Sucks a bit, because now he's gonna have a worse early. Heimerdinger Q towers HP is reduced, so it's easier to destroy it. Maybe it will take, probably it will take like one less hit, and the ability haste on his E is 30% less. Ability haste on Jax's E, they also nerfed it. It's reasonable because he spams it quite often, especially with the cooldown build, which can make it feel a bit unfair. And his R passive damage is significantly less by 20, and later on by 40, which is actually a big DPS cut. They're also nerfing Chaos Ult, right? R ability haste from 50, minus 50 to minus 100. And our base damage is, oh my god, 150, right? Which is like one or two basic attacks, and later on by 250, which is significantly more. What does this mean? Kiel will less likely reset her ult of plants, because this is one of those very, very strong type of ultimates. That's what it means. Now Cannon also, I assume, gets a nerf by 20% because he's perma-picked, and by 20 damage later on. The more he gets is lower apparently in the late game, and in the mid game by 10. Our damage per bolt is also lower by 10 and by 2.5 AP ratio, which means that his all-in will be less potent, so people can have more fun. Poppy, again, reasonable nerf. W ability haste minus 30, because people have a lot of dashes. Like, what is that she constantly cancels it, right? And 3 is less so frequent, because it's quite a dangerous ability when she has lots of lethality. Now, Wukong's Q base damage, again, one of those very strong champions in this game mode. His all-in is very strong, right? Um, this will mess with his early game a lot, though. 20, 10 less damage, and later on 30 less. W ability is minus 30, or damage gonna be less by 1% later on 2. I think Wukong might be just worthless now. Passive ghoul spawn is less, so it's not 6 but 8, so this might got Yorick as well. Ghoul health reduced to 30%, which means that it's easier to wipe them with AoE abilities, because with basic attacks it's a one basic attack anyways, right? Wind Speaker's Blessing, I think they finally nerfed it. They did, good. Because this was too much of a stat checker, so early on it's 30 more, the 15 less, right? And later on it's like same, right? 15 less, which is good. Vampiric Cameo. Present maximum health damage, they lowered it because this hurts. This hurts really badly. Arena QoL changes and bug fixes. The Ring of Fire will now apply increasing amounts of grievous wounds. Oh, that's good actually. That's also bad because one of the win conditions of champions like Mundo is healing through the fire, and sucks a bit, but sucks for champions that have actually like healing, and that's how they survive through. Player frame, but it also helps, right? If you're not that type of player that plays. Player frame augment panel has been added as an additional stat panel in the UI. The item shop has been recorded to go from starter to epic, mythic, and finally to legendary. Starter to epic to mythic and legendary. Okay. Okay. So bug fixes. Fix the bug where 24 bonus was not giving correct amount of movement speed, causing scout weapon augment to grant yeah, this I kept saying this is bugged and abuse it. Fix the bug that was causing loading screen tips from TFT to appear in the loading zone. Fix the bug that was causing the end of the game screen to not to display in the game ID. Fix the bug that causes champion splashes to not appear early. Fix the buff that causes karma human cast to die another day. Do they fix the Did they fix the thing though? They didn't fix coffee or fix the bug where Mordekaiser's ult would make the screen go completely green. For me, it was black. It wasn't green. It was black. But it happened to me as well. Fix the bug that was causing Nico's double clone to not move in the teleported direction. Or cooldown. Fix the bug that was causing attack move to prioritize plants over champion. Fix the bug where champions could apply on hit effects to the health relic. Okay, that's weird. Fix the bug that was causing incorrect victory defeat screen to be shown on losing and winning games. Fix the bug that when W was not blocking damage. Holy. Fix the bug that causing Earthquake to only explode where Maokai landed after his W. Fix the bug that causing Gangplank's Arch Serpents. Or Silver Serpents upgrade to not correctly display the icons. Fix the bug that Champions fix the bug. So they did not fix the bug with the Edge of Night, because sometimes you get two of them. If I proc Edge of Night with my Proto Belt, usually they get their Edge of Night back because it's bugged. Sometimes activatable items don't proc it, which they are supposed to. That's it from now. Have a nice day.